Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from NASCAR.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race, where unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Ryan Blaney has pulled off a win at New Hampshire in dramatic fashion with an intense battle with his pseudo-teammate Josh Berry of the Wood Brothers team there as well. Fantastic battle there towards the end, I have to really say. Another step down the road on this. Not only does Josh Berry not get his fourth consecutive last place finish, but had a very legitimate shot at actually pulling off the win. Previous four times in NASCAR history where a driver that almost got four in a row usually only had like a mid-pack finish. A couple times they finished next to last with Dave Blaney, and I believe, what was it? It was Max Pappas, I think, was the other one there that got a 42nd place finish, and ultimately didn't work out that way there. But this one here, there was a lot of back and forth on this one. We got quite a bit to talk about in this race, and we'll be certainly jumping into this here at the moment. But again, congratulations to Ryan Blaney. Don't really have too many notes on it. I think from what I was hearing on the broadcast here, he just had a flawless run. Berry kept him honest there at the end, and he still managed to hang on there. The Penske cars just looked really good all weekend. We saw Logano lead most of the race, and then Ryan Blaney leading the second most laps, and they pretty much just had this race to themselves for a good portion of it there. Not to say there weren't other drivers that had impressive runs there too, but great effort for Blaney. Punches his ticket to advance to the next round, in his first New Hampshire win and everything. But again, I just can't get past the Josh Berry thing there. Just a tremendous turnaround. I mean, my goodness, he qualifies third. He's qualified, I believe, no worse than 12th in these first now 4 races here of the playoffs this season. Berry's looked, and then of course he's had the terrible luck that he's had. He had the 2 wrecks at Gateway and Darlington. The Darlington wreck happening in turn 2 on the very first lap. Then he had the rocker box fire last week. The team posting pictures of the hat that was left in the car, all covered in smoke, soot and fire extinguishing material. So they needed to just have any kind of a good run out there. And indeed, in this one, things almost went way again. About 82 laps into the race, he and Shane Van Gisbergen have a battle off of turn 2. It looked like Berry came down on Shane coming off the corner there and spun himself out. Was very lucky not to collect anybody else in that incident. Also kept the thing off the inside wall. It seemed like that was going to be the story. And for just one tense moment there, it looked like that was going to be the case. He did end up dropping the last place there. We had a very, very low attrition up to that point. We had everybody staying on the lead lap even, with a late race caution that Cody Ware brought out, spinning out while running in last place, losing a lap in the process, and then getting his other lap back at the end of the stage. It was very much a toss-up. And this is kind of one of those really intense races. I anticipate we're probably going to have something like this at Phoenix for the championship week in a couple of months here, where, you just have very low attrition. You don't know who's going to be falling out or anything. And then all of a sudden, just something happens there. And, things did boil over here in that sense, too. Berry also having the fastest lap for most of the race, although late breaking news here, looking at the NASCAR.com leaderboard, it shows Carson Hocevar, who finished in the 11th spot, having the fastest lap of the race with a 29.92 second lap. So congratulations to Hocevar on that one. I'm sure we'll get some more information on that when we get the final result on this here at the same time. So, again, I just love that battle at the end. I'm glad we didn't get any restarts. I'm glad that it stayed green. I'm glad that we had about a 30 or so lap run there to the finish. There's issues with this car and everything, and we've seen that, certainly at these smaller tracks too. And maybe we may well have seen that still here with Berry locking up the tires there, losing ground, and then having to reel them back in again, just running out of time there. But again, I think that, I think that's where it's at its best. We got everybody's like hanging on. Their tires are wore out. The advantage went away really quickly for Blaney there, despite Berry staying out there. That was good to see. That's something very positive I think we can look ahead to there. I know the broadcast was just hoping for restarts, and they kept talking about it about as much as they were talking about Jonathan Hassler in this broadcast, the drinking game that I referred to in the title of this week's show here. But regardless, the way the race played out naturally, I think was very compelling. And yeah, and a story like that for Berry's, again, if we didn't have the playoff system here and say he just had a bad stretch of races where he finished in last place and now has a chance to win, that's great enough on its own. And I hate the thought of maybe some other impropriety being thrown into this here where, yeah, they're a Penske satellite team. Is he going to go up there and wreck, Ryan Blaney out of the lead? No. But I mean, would he have done that anyway? I don't see that way either. At least I don't think traditionally Berry has done that in his career, at least not what we've seen in NASCAR. And really in some cases, he's been the victim of that in some cases. And as of course, his famous middle finger clip from Phoenix a little while ago there. But yeah, as you mentioned, yeah, Beast of Metal. Yep. The other last place streaks before were a lot during the Startin Park era there. A little bit of a different one. And I mean, it kind of evolved in that era too. In 2010 with it was Max Pappas. He was still running full races at the road courses, but got involved in a big accident about 2/3 of the way in the race. And you had a situation like that too. So yeah, kind of an interesting deal there. But, again, I thought this was a pleasant race. I'm glad the weather was nice. Looked like a great crowd on hand. We even got to see a next-gen car come back out without the hood and the fenders on it. This only got a brief glimpse, but big thanks to, I believe, a gentleman posted a picture here on this as well. Yeah, we have we saw a brief glimpse of this at the closing stages of the race. But at V2 Pickens on Twitter, excuse me, it might be, there we go, posted this picture as well. Yeah, they actually had to get it didn't seem like Haley got that much damage in it. If it seemed like he had any damage, it was maybe to the rear of the car, because we saw Daniel Suarez ramp up the side of his car there, and I thought that was going to be what the situation was, and really didn't expect them to actually finish repairs. When it got to be the point where they're about like 70, 80 laps down, it seemed like that was going to be a situation where they just weren't even going to attempt to try to bring that car back out there. But ultimately, they did do so. They cut the fenders off and pulled the hood off about 10 or so laps before they came back out of the race, out of the garage area and back onto the track. So something very unusual. Kind of looked almost alien there. It had they kept foam. They had like a foam bumper on the front of the car. And if you see the picture, I just retweeted that, the V2 Pickens picture. And somebody else had a screen cap. Chase Commander 9 as well had the screen cap from the broadcast itself. Very interesting to see how all that shook out here. Oh, I'm just seeing Laser Bro. Thank you for the picture of Ty Gibbs getting towed as well. Let me retweet that. So some very interesting things that we haven't seen in a little bit here. But again, I know that they've had restrictions for the Cup cars where they have to have certain body panels on there. You usually hear about this with the rear bumper panel, and they have that big piece that's set up there, especially at the super speedways. We got slam drafting and all that. You don't really see this as much, but the New Hampshire track maybe is still under some semblance of the older rules. We haven't seen this as much because, of course, the damaged vehicle policy rule has just been changed this year, and we have had a DVP zone. There was some discussion about maybe them not having that, but that was being used. Indeed, the 88 car came back out with Van Gisbergen after the same incident. It was about 50 laps down, and then, of course, Haley here about 93 laps down at the finish. But yeah, hopefully this is going to be a sign looking forward that, we get to see some of these teams come back out there and try to get every position they can, and indeed did gain a couple of spots. Again, touched on Daniel Suarez. He's unofficially your last place finisher, ending the streak by Josh Berry. This would be Suarez's first last place run since last August at Daytona, when he had that weird fire that happened exiting his pit stall, where I believe it was fuel from Denny Hamlin's crew in front of it spread to his fuel cell, and had a situation where he had to bail out of the car there a lap later. A very unusual situation. In this case here, a bit more straightforward. A stack up there off of turn 2. Brad Keselowski glances off the barrier just past the tire stacks there at turn 2. Shoots himself back into traffic. A couple other cars get collected. Kyle Busch and Suarez, as well as Haley there at the outside wall. Shane Van Gisbergen there. Just a big mess, and probably the biggest in terms of car count altercation in this race here. But Suarez, the first time the 99 has finished last in a Cup race at New Hampshire. Of course, when you think of the 99 in New Hampshire, you think of Jeff Burton, now in the booth, and all the success he had here driving for Roush in particular, including the win in 2000 with the restrictor plates where he led from flag to flag. But this time, the first time the 99 is finished in last place in a Cup race at New Hampshire. So that will be among the statistics, pending, of course, the results of post-race inspection, and we'll find out what the story is there as well. The other question we have to ask ourselves after this race, what on earth was going on with Ty Gibbs in this race and the Denny Hamlin incident that followed it here? Gibbs looked extremely aggressive, I would say, through the first stage of this race. And, I don't know if he just felt that this was a track where he had a really good shot at pulling off a win, or if there's something else going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing here. Gibbs, of course, has been well known for his aggression earlier in his career, but after his Xfinity championship and the tragedy that occurred immediately after it, we haven't really seen as much of that, at least not on the racetrack there. And of course, now that he's passed the 100 starts mark in the Cup Series here, then lingering questions about, when is he going to be able to pull off his first win? Obviously, with the family relation there, I don't anticipate much changing there for the 54 team, but it did seem like he had a bit of a fire lit under him in this race. Now, I don't know if that's just because the Toyota teams dominated the last stage of the playoffs, and you had, Hamlin and Briscoe and Christopher Bell winning those races and everything. Obviously, Gibbs being the one Gibbs team that's not in the playoffs here, and again, still looking for his first win. I don't know what was going on, but it seemed very noticeable at the very beginning with some of the moves he was making, and Denny Hamlin seemed to just lose his patience going into turns 1 and 2, got in the left rear of him, just trying to get around him, perhaps. But it seemed like it was more than enough to do so, because it was enough to send the 54 around. And then on top of this, we had the perennial battle between the drivers and the tow truck drivers. That was another moment in this event here. Ty Gibbs, ends up losing a couple laps there in the incident. Seems like he just needs a push back to the garage area. The tow truck stops pushing him and gets in front of him because the master switch had snapped off apparently on the 54 and he couldn't get the car refired. Gibbs was apparently having trouble communicating this to the tow truck guy, and once the car didn't restart, they just hooked him up and dragged him behind the wall. Now, I think in terms of consistency, it probably shouldn't have been as surprising. It seems like whenever I think that to prevent them from being, too much communication between the tower and the tow truck and other stuff happening that, gets handled during these cautions, it probably is just simple to just say, okay, look, try to give him a push start. If it doesn't start, hook him up, get him behind the wall, and then make that caution as short as possible. That's probably, I don't 100% know if that's the case, but that's what it feels like from seeing a lot of these incidents here. And I think that's probably the best way to go about it. The unfortunate part is that you're going to have situations like this where they're going to needlessly lose a whole lot more laps getting dragged back around the track. Thankfully here, it's one of the smaller tracks on the circuit, but a place like Talladega or something like that, first of all, a track where it's much more air dependent, you're going to have damage from the car being dragged behind the wall, especially if they have, additional flat tires there. And then, and then second times, you're just going to be losing some more time there to the rest of the field. But in this case here, again, Ty Gibbs gets towed behind the wall, and with the DVP rule being what it is, they were able to fix the car. They looked under the left front there. They actually needed some more repairs. Gibbs made it sound like he didn't really need that at first, but got back out there. Was about, I think, 13, 15 laps down at this point, clearly out of contention for a win, but then slaps the wall off of turn 2 and drives back to pit road. Crew was working on it again in the garage area, but at that point, Gibbs climbed out of the car, and they were done for the day in the 35th spot. John Hunter Nemechek, the other incident that we have to talk about here, a scary incident going into turn 3. And for those of you that follow this channel, certainly incidents in turn 3 at New Hampshire are nothing to sneeze at here as well. The track, for all the safety advancements in these cars, we unfortunately got a little bit of a taste of that from both the incidents that John Hunter Nemechek had in today's race and Derek White had yesterday in the Truck Series race, which we'll talk a bit more. We'll talk more about the race in this segment, but I'll go ahead and bring this up now. Yeah, I mean, the Nemechek incident there looked like he hit the hump going into the corner, racing against Riley Herbst. Car slid into the outside wall and just absolutely clobbered it with the rear corner, looks like the right rear corner and the right front, hopped the car off the ground, and again, this is a track that you don't usually think of having really brutal hits. It kind of gives the impression that it's a much slower track than it is, but it is not. I can't help but think of what Lastbro described when he went over and watched this race in person a couple of years ago, and it just looks like an Oklahoma land rush of all these cars rushing into the corner, stacking up 3 and 4 wide as everybody just uses up their brakes and then tries to gun it again down the straightaways and do the same thing. Like, we saw that even from the start of this race, how much everybody stacks up out there. So it's a very mechanically demanding track and a very unforgiving track if you have any kind of incident out there as well. And I'd say that the Derek White incident was doubly concerning because in that one, it was a hung throttle, clear as day. I don't know why the booth for the Fox broadcast of the truck race was playing it so dumb and just kind of being like, well, we don't know what happened. I don't know. He just got in some fluid, or we don't know what this is. That was the clearest example I've seen in quite some time of a hung throttle. When you got those parallel lines pointing right at the wall, when the driver's locking it down, they can't do it. In fact, the fact that even the team pointed out that they were working on a stuck throttle issue just the previous caution before that. I can't believe they didn't have that information. I'm just glad that it wasn't a serious incident because it was very reminiscent of what we saw back in 2000 with, not just more serious examples of it with Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin, but even in the truck series, I believe it was Dennis Setzer going into that third corner and having it lock up and just absolutely clobber the outside wall there too. So a very tricky part of the track. And again, thankfully in this quarter century since those accidents, yes, there are safety features on these cars and the safer barrier itself that make it, not as serious. You've seen John Hunter Nemechek checked and release from the Infield Care Center. Same with Derek White yesterday in the Truck Series race. But yeah, some savage hits out there. And again, the dangerous elements of this sport are very much still present out there. But again, the best you can do is, encourage the kind of safety advancements that have been brought about since then. But Van Gisbergen and Haley, again, involved in the earlier accident with Daniel Suarez at the back of the field. Both of them actually climbed past Gibbs and Nemechek by the finish of this race. Haley shown in the 33rd spot, Van Gisbergen in 32nd, and they end up completing the bottom 5. Again, this all pending the results of post-race inspection. We'll find out later tonight if that's going to be the case or not. But again, unofficially, Daniel Suarez with the first last place run for the 99 in a cup race at New Hampshire. Suarez's first last place finish of this season and his first since Daytona in August of last year. So we will see what the story is there as well. Rough day in general for Legacy Motor Club. We also saw Eric Jones at the back of the field there in the opening stage, dropping back into the bottom 5. A lot of really challenging issues. It seems like for some teams that were at the back of the field, they had such difficulty getting out from there. We saw Kyle Busch looking really, really bad out there. And that's saying something given the fact that the last couple of years in this next-gen era, he has just really, really been off at New Hampshire, which used to be a track that he was pretty solid at. When he was driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, even when he drove for Hendrick, he won one of his first races at this track, I believe back in 2006. Man, he just really seems to struggle out there. He dropped back to 35th place, and he held that spot for a very long time there. And Cody Ware was catching him. He was actually kind of getting his feet under him, and despite all the struggles they were having getting that 51 car off the corners and getting the pedal down, it was still a very difficult situation there for him. So I don't know what's going on with the 8 team, especially when Austin Dillon, as they brought up in the broadcast, was able to come back from his couple of incidents there, including the one with Cody Ware. Really both incidents with Cody Ware. That other later incident in turns 1 and 2 where Ware seemed to slide up into him. I don't know how much it was deliberate or the car was just out of control or what, but an extraordinary coincidence if it was the former. But again, regardless, a difficult situation for the Childress team here. Seeing Dillon, where did he get? Does he still get 11th, or did he get the top 10? No, he was 13th the finish there for Dillon. One spot behind Denny Hamlin there at the end of that race there as well. So kind of an unusual deal there too. Ty Dillon had a pretty miraculous save going into turn 3. His car seemed to get crossed up even more than Nemechek's did going into the corner, and salvaged 29th place finish out of that. He ends up the one car, one lap down at the finish. Kyle Busch was 3 laps down at the checkered flag, and Cody Ware 4 laps down after suffering damage in the second incident there with Austin Dillon. Zane Smith, unfortunately, back in the 27th spot, not able to keep the momentum up after that great run we saw out of him at Bristol last Saturday night. Same goes for Brad Keselowski after the glancing off the turn 2 wall in the big incident there about a third of the way into the race. Keselowski ends up in the 23rd spot. That's right. It's 301 laps. So that would be actually 4 laps down for Kyle Busch and 5 laps down for Ware. Ty Dillon, the only driver, 2 laps down. We do have multiple drivers that were 1 lap down with Ricky Stenhouse, Bubba Wallace, and Zane Smith, and Eric Jones. Bubba Wallace really off in this one. The onboard camera, I thought, captured it pretty well, of him just absolutely fighting the wheel off those corners. I think that was very similar to what Cody Ware was dealing with too, where it was really free off, just tight in the middle, really free off. Can't get the gas down because the cars, you can't even point the thing straight to shoot it down those straightaways down there, and really had a negative effect, I think, on both their performances out there for sure. Noah Gragson was at the back of the field. He started 33rd. He was right in the battle for last place. He and Cody Ware battling near the tail end of the field off of turn 4 on the very first lap. He climbs back to the 16th spot to finish, so a good recovery for him. Ryan Preece with a decent run there, one of his home tracks there, in the 14th place finish for him. Hocevar I was very impressed with again. I think he's another driver that, much like Ty Gibbs, was driving very aggressively out there. If you look back to the start of this race, you'll see that blue and purple Delaware Life based in Massachusetts car flying to the outside groove there and picking off about 3 or 4 cars there in the high lane. Apparently Gregson, according to the Front Row Motorsports Twitter account, did the same thing on the 1-lap restart that ended stage 1. So some very aggressive moves out there at the same time. Chase Briscoe, we didn't see as much out of him in this race here, despite the dominance of the number 19 team with Martin Truex Jr. there in the past, and Briscoe having all the momentum in the world from that first round there in particular. But regardless, still leads 19 laps, most of that from doing some pit strategy to try to get the top spot there. Still comes away with the 10th place finish there. Michael McDowell snuck into the top 10 there with an 8th place finish. A fine job for him. I really expected Christopher Bell to be a bigger figure in this race after winning at Bristol last week and coming into this track where he just always seems, no matter what, in the Truck Series, Xfinity, or whatever, he just seems to just have this place figured out, even when it was a damp track last year. And I thought there was no way he was going to lose this race, but we really didn't see that. He was not a factor at all. He didn't lead a lap. He was in and around the top 10 most of the day, but he is much better than that at this track. There were reports that he got some damage from the big incident off of turn 2. I don't know how accurate that was or how much of an effect that had. But even before and after that, it didn't seem to change things too much. And he ends up in the 6th place finish there too. Chase Elliott was impressive in his rally at the same time. When Bubba Wallace was struggling at the beginning, Chase was passing him to be the lowest classified of the playoff contenders there in the beginning of the race, and he came out with a 5th place finish after starting 27th, the only one in the top 5 to qualify outside the top 5 on that. So an impressive rally for him. Again, if it was a full season championship, I think he'd have just as much success as his father in pursuing that just as easily as him winning the 2020 championship under the current rules. But again, a fine job there out of the Napa team. And we'll see how things shake out in Kansas next week. I think that should be a pretty intense battle there as well. But a little bit of everything. I don't know exactly what was going on with the Ty Gibbs thing. Denny Hamlin, apparently no comment on his side of the altercation there that happened about a third of the way into the race thereabouts. Don't exactly understand what's going on there, especially with Gibbs being this dominant and Ty Gibbs still trying to get his first win. I think that you could probably argue that's just as much about the parity of these cars and that you can't really get away from somebody else. And these cars are so equal there over the Gibbs team They can't really do anything from it there, but I'm sure that's going to make plenty of highlight reels. I'm sure we're not going to hear anything about whatever the Monday morning meeting is going to be over at JGR tomorrow. But I guess it'll be interesting to see how everybody handles themselves after that. I think Ty Gibbs, to his credit, handled it about as well as he could, for as upset as he sounded on the radio, and understandably, just beside himself about the tow trucks not bringing his car back to pit road, just not getting a push out there. But again, there's that whole system is still pretty imperfect there too. But I don't know how much more that could be fixed beyond what we have now. If there's not a good enough communication between the tower and the tow truck driver, or if maintaining that connection is too much, then probably the protocol they have in place is the best they can really do. And unfortunately, even if you're, just spun out, you got a flat tire and you can't get the car refired and you can't drive it to pit road, you're going to lose multiple laps, and you're probably not going to be a factor at the end of the race there too. So it's still better than what we had last year, for what we can say on that. Josh Berry certainly knows a thing or two about that. At Kansas last year in the fall, he had that spin in the very beginning. Car was perfectly fine. Didn't really have any damage on it or anything. Just needed some new tires, and he'd be able to keep rolling and everything. But in that one, he got pushed behind the wall. He was sitting there right amongst all of the campers and the RVs out there, just waiting to get brought back to the garage area, losing laps by the day, and ultimately ended his race. I mean, just absurd. I'm glad we're past that. But we'll see if anything else kind of gets re-examined here at the same time. Let's see. Kyle Larson in 7th. Good run for him. Led 4 laps. Finally seemed to be a little bit of life out of the 2021 champion out there. He's just been off again this whole kind of stretch run. Ross Chastain, too. We saw him in the middle of some pretty tight fights there when the field stacked up. Ends up with a 9th place finish there, so good deal for him. And that's really mostly what I have to say on that. Again, a solid afternoon of racing. Just 3 drivers out of the race between Nemechek, Gibbs, and Suarez. And a good battle for the lead. I think that, most of the time that's pretty much the best you can ask for there. It'd be wonderful if Barry could got up there and take the win. And I think I mentioned this already, but I'll go ahead and mention it again just in case I haven't. In the previous 4 times that you had a driver score 3 consecutive last place finishes and not finish last of the 4th, those drivers never finished more than like mid-pack. And somebody was asking me if anybody's ever won after a streak of 3 in a row. And I could say no, at least not in the Cup Series. You had a couple start and park teams like Beast of Metal was mentioning there as well. Then beyond that, a couple other incidents with, you had Ryan Preece in the 2020 season when we had the midweek races and so forth. And who knows if that streak was going to keep going or not, but ultimately it didn't, and was beat by his teammates at the time, Ricky Stenhouse. And then GC Spencer back in the 60s there when you had, again, kind of similar to COVID, when you had midweek races and so forth, driving for the same team. GC Spencer's actually changed in no small part because he changed teams. He was driving for one team that either was underfunded or didn't have a lot of support or anything, and just kind of just fell out of those races early. Drove for somebody else in the Southern 500 in a marquee event, and actually finished, I believe, 22nd out of 48 drivers in that one. So a big turnaround for him there at the same time. But the unofficial margin of victory, 0.937 seconds, just under 1 second there. Again, Barry got it all the way down to, he was just about within shouting distance of Blaney, getting down to about 0.2, if not a little bit less. Kudos to, I guess I want to kind of transition into this. Kudos to the NBC USA broadcast here. I felt like, despite the fact that they just kept saying Jonathan Hasler's name too much, I felt like, they were actually doing a decent job of like tracking something when it happened. I feel like if Fox was covering this race, they would have been completely caught off guard by Barry catching Blaney. But you could see in the intervals, it seemed like when Blaney got around Barry, it's like, okay, here we go. He's going to get a big lead. He's going to be out front by like 2 seconds, and then it's maybe going to stabilize, but Barry can't get up there, and then the race is just going to end that way. But that's not what happened. Blaney got the lead. It seemed like he built up a little bit of a gap. It seemed like Byron was going to get around Barry, and then that was going to be it. And he's going to be back in the 3rd spot maybe. But Barry held off Byron, and then he got up to 2nd, and then you could see the gap closing. And when the gap got to about 4/10, they finally went back and showed the leaders, and they said, oh, yeah, no, he's catching them. And that's the kind of stuff I like. I really enjoy that in watching these races, to see, somebody that's charging, somebody that's able to come up there and pass. I mean, that's, my goodness, that's what we're watching this for. We don't want this just to be follow the leader or anything like that. And we can split hairs about how easy it is, or how difficult it is to make these passes or anything. But my goodness, Berry was absolutely up there and making a show out of it there. And I don't think Blaney was playing it easy at that end, too. Certainly from how out of breath he was in his interview on the front straightaway there. So I think that was a big turnaround. So, yeah, again, decent, good battle up front, interesting battle at the back of the field. We had a little bit of drama. It looked like it was going to be Josh Berry in last place, and then he ends up kind of tying the whole story together. Comes from the back of the field almost to the front, and not even the full distance in the case of like an Ernie Irvan thing at Sears Point 92. Getting up there with some time to remain. So, really interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Oh, this is good. In Jeff Gluck's poll, I would easily say this is a good race. Again, New Hampshire is one of those tracks where, you can get people strung out and tires get slimy out there and you just can't get around somebody there. It kind of has that Richmond feel to it where you can maybe get alongside somebody, but completing the pass is just a whole other story. But again, I think that this had a good mix to it. So, again, kudos to Blaney for the victory and to Josh Berry for the spirited charge there, too. We'll jump into the Truck Series race here as well. Corey Heim continues his rampant storming through the field here and pull out the win. But again, much like in the race today, he did not necessarily have an easy go of it there on the stretch run. Chandler Smith, for as miserable of a start that he's had to these playoffs here in the Truck Series, and ultimately not advancing to the next round here as a result of that, did a fine job out there putting Heim to task, which really seemed even more surprising. I mean, Blaney, in the Cup Series in general, it seems like there are some times that maybe somebody can challenge the leader and kind of get up there. Maybe not quite as close as we saw with Josh Berry, but at least ones where they more or less, they can kind of keep it close. To the point where, the aerodynamics do whatever they do. But Corey Heim just seems to be so many light years ahead of the rest of the field in the Truck Series that it seems like once he's up front, you just really can't do anything with him. It's vintage Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson. But Chandler Smith did a fine job out there and made, again, the closing stages of yesterday's race pretty compelling as well. If you haven't seen that, I'd encourage you to check that out at the same time there. But Chandler Smith not quite able to advance the next round. Lane Riggs, Giovanni Ruggiero, and Ty Majeski, your top five there. Caden Honeycutt makes the next round of the playoffs, which was exciting because Stuart Friesen was able to make it out to the racetrack, and kudos to him as he continues his recovery from that terrible accident that he had on the dirt track a little while ago there. Honeycutt still making a push for the championship, and there was a hint, at least from the broadcast there, that Friesen may potentially get back behind the wheel for the championship race in Phoenix, and how dramatic would that be? I don't know that the logistics of that would work out if Honeycutt ends up making the championship four somehow. Obviously, they have a second injury. We saw Ted Christopher's nephew, Michael Christopher Jr., drive that truck yesterday and, got banged around a little bit out there. Where did he actually finish in the race there in the 62? 13th place finish, so not a bad finish there for him in the 62 entry. So maybe that'll be something that we'll be following at Phoenix here in a little bit. We're already kind of looking ahead to that there at the same time. But Grant Enfinger in sixth with the new crew chief there on board, trying to make this late season push stick for him there. Honeycutt in seventh. Corey LaJoy in the eighth spot there, the number 77. Christian Eckes coming back from an incident to finish in ninth there in the McAnally number 16. And Raja Karuth there in 10th, hanging on to make it to the next round there. So congratulations to Raja there as well, finishing in the 10th spot there. And again, Mike Christopher Jr. in his debut in the 13th spot. Andre Perez de Lara leads 47 laps, pretty much dominating stage two. I know there were criticisms in that race about how easily people could make passes. But regardless, given the fact that he's just changed teams not that long ago, I believe it was at Watkins Glen just last month, I think that's tremendous, especially since the Nice team doesn't seem to really be at the same level as the Spire Motorsports effort in terms of their assets and, of course, what's formerly the KBM team versus the Nice effort. Yeah, I thought he did a tremendous job out there. Easily a career race for him, even though it wasn't a career best finish for him, dropping back to 15th at the checkered flag. But kudos to him there as well on that. Looking further back through the field here, some hard hits in this one. We had Tony Breidinger slam head on to the outside wall in turns 3 and 4 during a stack up. Good to see she was okay in the Sunoco entry out there. Patrick Emmerling looking to have a good run there for Spire there in the SciAps entry. Unfortunately, his day ends with an accident in turns 1 and 2, drops him back to the 28th spot. Mentioned Derek White, and again, the stuck throttle there, a freaky accident there for him, especially from the camera angle where you see the truck coming like right at the camera. A harrowing moment there for a driver who also is one of the older drivers on the circuit there. But good to see him get out of that truck okay. Hate it for the Carl Long effort there, especially as they're trying to break back into the Truck Series this year in that number 69 entry, but finishing in the 30th spot there as well. The bottom 5 ended up being a bit of a toss-up here too. At least it seemed like it was going to be. Connor Mosack ends up being your last place finisher, which is a surprise. Not just the fact that Clayton Green had come into this race with 3 consecutive last place finishes, but was not entered in this race. Stephen Malazzi took over for him, the unsponsored number 2 entry for the Riam Brothers racing effort there. Seemed like Malazzi was going to be your last place finisher. The two teams seems to have settled into the start and park rhythm here for these last several races here, especially since Richmond, I would say. But that was not the result in this race here. Clayton Green was not entered in the race at all. The number 22 went to Blake Lothian, and the team's other entry, where was that? Tyler Tomasi in the number 33, Tomasi in the 33 entry, as Frankie Muniz still recovers from his wrist injury there in the truck. All these towards the back of the field there. Lothian in the 20th spot, Tomasi in the 27th position, and Malazzi in 35th. There was some interesting discussion over the radio about before the race about if Malazzi or Caleb Costner in the Mike Harmon truck were going to be the first ones to the garage area. It ended up being Malazzi after the caution that collected Connor Mosack in that incident. Rough deal there for him. Turns 1 and 2, very similar to what we saw with Josh Berry back at Darlington. Had a bit of a stack up there, and it's amazing how narrow that gets. Again, we saw it today with Brad Keselowski and his battle there off of turn 2, glancing off that wall past the tire stacks. It just, everybody kind of pinches each other down and then swings back out against that wall in the back straightaway. But there's that little hairy moment there where if somebody gets a little bit too aggressive going into that corner, or you try to cram too many cars, or in this case, trucks in that position, it can be a mess really quick there. And unfortunately, Connor Mosack found himself in a spot there where he couldn't get away from Tanner Gray's truck, tore up the right front of his truck. Seemed like he was going to be able to get the fender pulled out. It's kind of strange to think about because, again, you look back to the history of the Truck Series, it's always like, well, these trucks, being big bricks like they used to be back in the mid-90s, seemed like they could just put up with a lot more abuse and just pushing in fenders, and it doesn't really matter. This damage didn't seem that severe, but clearly something was happening with the suspension. Pulled him behind the wall and ultimately didn't get back out there and completed just one lap in the process. If you think back, though, and it's been the first time the Truck Series ran at Loudon in about 8 years, but there's been several races, I believe about 5 of them, where the driver in last place didn't complete any laps. So it's not exactly the shortest afternoon the driver's ever had at this track, but it's certainly in the running at the same time there. But it'd be Mosack's first last place finish in the Truck Series, his first in NASCAR's Top 3 Series as well. He never finished last in his Xfinity efforts, mostly for the Sam Hunt effort and other teams that he's driven for there too. The first time the 81 has finished last since the 2016 championship race with Ryan Truex driving for the Hattori team back then there as well. So Mosack ends up being your last place finisher. That article already up on the lastcar.info page if you haven't checked that out. And it went much more into what was happening ahead of him there because it was a bit of back and forth there too. Malazzi pulled off the track with a suspension issue, and then there were issues with pace for both Caleb Costner and Norm Benning at that point. Benning had dropped into the bottom 5 in the early laps, and both of them had to make repairs and get back out there. Benning was very frustrated when he was flagged off the track and sent back behind the wall there at that point. He wanted clarification from NASCAR officials. They didn't really provide that to him. But apparently from the radio traffic, he did get that one chance to try to fix the truck up and get back out there. He was shouting some adjustments to the team to the rear of the truck to try to get him back out there. But yeah, I mean, with an older truck out there, with an engine that's not the same level as the Ilmore engines that the rest of the field has, it's a very difficult situation in general. And somebody else brought this up over the weekend, and I think they're right about this. With the colleague effort coming in next year and all those Dodge Ram entries, it's going to be that much more difficult for these smaller teams out there. Hopefully they can still compete in these races whenever they can. We have seen short fields this year. So again, it's not outside the realm of possibility. They can't still make some races at the same time, maybe in venues that don't get as much attention. But who knows what these teams are going to replace, or if other teams are going to continue operating as well. We always hear about, how little these Truck Series teams make in the purse distribution every week. So I don't know what's going on that. We'll find out what the story is there coming up here at the end of the season and going into next year at the same time. But Benning was flagged off the track for running too slow after 29 laps. Caleb Costner was still out on the track, and then had the incident with Jason Alexander in turn 1. Alexander made a pretty aggressive move looking to pass both Costner and another truck out there. It just didn't pay off. I get why Alexander was frustrated, not just the fact that he's new to the circuit, but I believe he said earlier this week that this was his last attempt of the season. It sucks to have have something like that happen. You're out of the race. You only get 31 laps out there, and now you got to wait till sometime next year with whatever your deal is going to be to get back out there. But we'll see. Hopefully things turn around better for Jason there as well. Costner, involved in that incident, was already a lap down at that time. He ended up pulling off the track there as well, and his day was done at the same time there too, finishing in the 33rd spot. So a lot of back and forth here. Tanner Gray was the other element in this mix for being involved in the incident with Mosack, much like we saw today with Justin Haley and Shane Van Gisbergen. Gray getting back out there, multiple laps down, and climbing through the ranks, actually getting all the way up from, I believe he was 35th, right there with Mosack, and then came back out there and climbed all the way to 29th before dropping out of the race. In the closing stages, he didn't really have anybody else falling out, despite all the cautions we were having and all the 1 and 2 truck incidents that punctuated the beginning of that event there. Regardless, good rally there for him, even though it still was not the kind of day that the 5th place qualifier had hoped for. But his spin really kind of started that incident there in turn 2, and it was unfortunately going to be a long day after that as well. So a little bit of everything for drivers in the field there. So, again, solid race on that one. I think today's race was better than the truck race yesterday. Truck race was kind of chaotic there and all the cautions and so forth. Even got to the point where NASCAR talked about when they were going to cut off the race, if there was going to be, if there was going to be rain that came through there, that they were talking about 6:40 in the afternoon. And given the fact that this race started so early in the morning, that was clearly not going to be too much of an issue there. But regardless, how long was the race here? 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 12 seconds there for a 175 lap race. A bit surprising there as well. But kudos to him. I did not watch the modified race live, but I understood that was dramatic, to say the least. When you had the race winner out there recreating the Jeff Bodine, Richie Evans accident at Martinsville many years ago. The right front tire ripped off the old blue entry, reminiscent of the car that Steve Park ran at New Hampshire in 2011, which is, of course, directly referencing a modified car from back then. Crazy stuff there. I didn't have the kid's name here in front, but wasn't it the guy's first win out there too? I don't remember. But that was a dramatic one there too. Yeah, I used to do flow racing, but it was kind of expensive and I didn't really use it enough, so I haven't kept up on that. Again, I kind of pick and choose there with that. But let's see, where was it? Modified NASCAR, modified Loudon. I know we had Patrick Emmerling and Mike Christopher. I'm seeing Bowser Jr. XD mentioning this as well. Yeah, we had a couple of the guys from the Truck Series race running in that event there too. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Just looking at this here too. Mike Christopher actually running like the paint scheme looked just like, just like his uncle, Ted Christopher's entry there, the black one with the gold number 13 on it. Wow. Wow. I didn't realize he ran that. That's awesome. A lot of history back there with TC. Somebody posted earlier this week a great picture of Ted Christopher when he was driving the field filler entry for Kirk Shelmerdine in 2004. And how cool it was that they didn't start in park. They tried to run as many laps as they could out there, and a good effort out there. Not the first Cup start for Christopher. He ran his own entry at Watkins Glen in 1999. I remember that one because he ran the actual number 13 on it. And that stood out in my memory because it reminded me so much of Nadeau's car from the previous year, even though it was a completely different team and a completely different history of the car number for him there. But that was definitely the case. Tyler is it Rip Kemma? Bowser Jr.? Yeah, for his first win. Yeah, just incredible. I did see the replay of the finish. Just amazing stuff out there. The battle for the modified series. I've not attended a modified race in person. I've seen like some local stuff out here, like Placerville Speedway or All-American Speedway out here. I guess the Vegas track, the Vegas Bull Ring had some kind of modified kind of series out there, but the Featherlight or the series, whatever it is now, what is it? The Wheelan modified series up there in the Northeast. That's where it's like religion up there. Like those guys are really hardcore people. I mean, that's where you get Tommy Baldwin from and Ted Christopher and all those guys up there. One of these days, we'll have to check it out. I'd love to go back up to New Hampshire. Again, Lastbro checked it out a couple of years ago. Looks like they have a great fan base up there. Speaking of which, the shirt I brought out today, I picked up this online recently, and it's got Ricky Craven's 1995 Kodiak Chevrolet on it. I can't believe, found something like this on here. I loved this paint scheme as a kid. This is the 96 version of it here. But that 41, that Larry Hedrick entry with the Kodiak colors on it. Definitely love that one there too. And Craven's story, of course, has had many twists and turns, and more recently today, driving the pace car for the race. I know I got some great conversation recently when people were wondering why I noticed that picture they posted on social media was this picture from 1999. You can see the answers. You can see the little SB3 Motorsports logo on the lapel there. And that was that old 58 car he ran in 1999. Kind of definitely a very obscure team. Had a very short life in the sport there during his career, but was an important stepping stone towards him kind of finding that better ride over at Cal Wells' team and winning those 2 Cup races later in his career. So, just a crazy deal there. Did they show Craven? I didn't watch the pre-race to the race today. Did they show Craven in the pre-race? Hopefully they did, but I think that was a cool effort to have him out there. Of course, this is, this being his home track, being from Maine, winning the pole a couple times up there, over driving for Hendrick or driving for the Hal Hicks team. Good deal there for him in his career. Let's see here. Did I have anything else on the truck race there? Kind of talked about that already. Connor Jones with the wreck there at the same time. Tyler Tomasi with the wrecks in turn 1 and 2. Crafton, Breidinger, and Ben Rhodes collected in another incident. I mean, my goodness, the garage area got very full, very quick in yesterday's race there too. But an interesting one. Also kind of interested to see a race that early in the morning. Over here on the West Coast, that would be about 9:30 in the morning there for that. But that was cool. I like that. I'd like to see that become a bit more common and leave more of the day open in these deals here at the same time. But an interesting way for all of that to turn around here. I do have a couple other notes that I left over from last week. Been kind of a tricky couple of weeks here on the show, but I do want to kind of get into some of that. Before I do that, I want to say at the same time, big thanks to those of you guys for checking out the latest video that was posted this week. This was on Leroy Porter and his history working with Competitive Edge Motorsports. This was a video I've been sitting on for entirely too long. We did this interview back in January, which was, if you remember, was about a month after that episode of Field Fillers came out. And, I called a number of people. I couldn't get anybody on the phone. And I was like, look, I want to kind of try to get this episode around, the holidays. And so I got that episode posted. And then, of course, right afterwards, like on New Year's weekend, I had the interview with Leroy, and a wonderful interview. I thought about, my original plan was to republish the old episode with his stuff in there, but I didn't want to make you guys rewatch stuff you've already seen and try to make it so, you kind of, it was 50-50. I was like, well, this story kind of stands well on its own. And I hope that was the experience for you guys when you saw the video this week. And it turned out to be really about a 20-minute video in its own right there. He provided some other corrections to some of the information from my first video. And he even got a hold of me on this and had some other information to clarify on that as well. So I appreciate that. I mentioned some of that on social media about, who was in the operation of the team, like which people were standing out there. Most of that pertained to Joe Hour IV, or Joe 4, as he mentioned in the interview. I did speak to him briefly, but he's a very, very busy individual. I don't remember exactly what I thought he was still in the business with ICN, but apparently his brother is. And so there was some more information on that. But I did speak to him briefly about the marathon sponsorship there as well, and where that came into the equation. So hopefully that added some extra clarification, and I wanted to kind of get that out before the next episode is coming together. So, again, big thanks to Leroy Porter and Joe Hour IV for speaking to me on that project there. And if you haven't seen that video, it's still the pinned, I believe it's still the pinned video in my Twitter feed at NASCAR on Brock there at the same time. But the next episode of Field Fillers is coming close to completion. Those of you who are in my Patreon at patreon.com/NASCAR on Brock, you will see that I made a new post last night. We got another benchmark done, got the outtakes clipped out, got a lot of the music arranged, and still working on just getting the visuals and the text layers put in there, which is good. And we get to the point here where I'd say probably in the next couple weeks, that'll be ready, certainly for the Patreon members, and then after that will be released publicly. So very excited to get that one done. Our friend Brian Hallman of the BRH Racing Archives actually just today sent over some more pictures from Zach's career. He had a tremendous amount. That's a next big thing I need to do to adjust to it there, is adding his photography into it, because he had a tremendous career in the sport. May not have been the most successful, just had the one win in 1985, but a very long career and a very positive individual. I'd love to interview Greg one of these days. Unfortunately, that's not part of this video, but you will be hearing from him in a lot of these interviews as well. He was always a person that was very comfortable with the media, taking pictures of the cars, promoting different sponsors in the sport. And I think it's going to be a very enjoyable video. In fact, it's also going to be a very long video. This one right now is just under 2 hours long, which I believe is one of the longest ones in the Field Fillers series. I guess the Carl Long one, turned out to be 3 parts, so that one probably still has a lead at this moment. But it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a interesting tour through the sport's history. It's not going to be just on 2004. You'll notice in Field Fillers, I've kind of had to transition that way, where some of these drivers or teams talked about a much smaller part of a much larger career. So they're becoming very similar to my other driver profile videos, where it's just their entire career. But this one I think is going to be really interesting. I've had a lot of fun putting it together. I've done a lot of edits to it as new information has come out that I've been able to find on it. And again, one of these days, I'm treating it like the Leroy Porter one, where, one of these days, if I do get a hold of Greg Sachs and we do an interview, that's just going to be another separate video, and we'll have that up. And I'm sure I'm just, even in this one, I'm just scratching the surface of his career. I'm sure there's way more that went on behind the scenes that we'll find out. But this will be a good overview, I think, of what happened in his career and what to really think about it. I think there's some really interesting questions to be asked about what, a career like his means in the history of the sport. And it'll be interesting. I can't wait to share it with you guys. And it's going to be, I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think if you're a big fan on those for field fillers as well as driver profiles, you're going to enjoy this one for sure. I see questions already about the Stanton Barrett one there too. That's another one where, yeah, again, that one's still in stasis as best as I can say. It's just not going anywhere at the moment. I was just looking through the file the other day because I do still have, again, great pictures from Brian Hallman at the BRH Racing Archives. Again, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the story on that one, again, I did have a script put together, had the video ready, at least a rough draft of the script going, reviewed it with Stanton. He had some issues with it, and other stories that he was starting to tell me. And I'm like, wow, all this needs to be in the video. I'm like, my God, we got to get this in here. And, I've debated about, us going through it and maybe just making tweaks to it, or if we just need to start from scratch. It's really at that point. So I don't know how long that's going to take. And that's why I've kind of moved on past it at the point here. But again, it could be tomorrow. It could be a month from now. I really have no idea here. But I don't want to hold up other content on the channel here too, because I really am trying to work on improving my upload schedule, making some more short form content and trying to get that out there. Not moving away from the long form content like I mentioned last week, but mixing it up there a little bit more. And I've been talking with Brian Hallman about this too, about some of these other topics and what other pictures and content can be used for that. In fact, I have another video on another sponsor. I'll mention this now that I mentioned on the Patreon already. I have another short form video that's going to be similar to the Country Time Lemonade video. There's another sponsor that was around in the late 1980s in NASCAR, had a brief but widespread exposure in the sport. And I'll just tease it with that right now, but that's another video that I'm working on. Brian Hallman has provided a ton of pictures from this, which is fascinating. I didn't think there was that much content on it, but that's another one that's also in the works there too. So I'm very excited to bring that to you guys as well. Right now, I think it's great that these are coming together now because, like I said before, I think over the off season, this will let me get kind of some more traction here, catching up on those. And I haven't forgotten about 500 days. That one, probably after this current one that I'm putting together here, I'll probably jump right back into that. Because I think that one, I'm just kind of anxious to kind of get that, back in circulation there because we're reaching a very important point in the timeline there with that spring Talladega race. But we'll get there. I think that's just gonna be a matter of time there too. So it's not for a lack of subject matter on the channel there. For sure. We're going to make some more progress on that. But the Greg Sachs video, that will be the next one I'm looking at here. I was, after last night in particular, made a lot of good progress there. That's the other reason I liked when having the races earlier in the day. I had more time to work on this, which was great. So we got some good progress on that. And if you want some more updates, status updates on that, again, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And also, if you're in the $5 and up levels of the Patreon, you'll have advanced access to that video and other videos that I produce on my channel, as well as advanced access to videos that are going to be on the Last Car Archives channel, and so forth from there. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, I very much enjoyed the Leroy Porter interview, and I hope you guys did at the same time there too. I want to also offer my congratulations over to Mark Garrow, who announced this week that he is going to be retiring from the Performance Racing Network at the end of this season. And what I thought was very interesting in his announcement was all the things he was revealing that he's accomplished in his career outside the booth. You hear from the past when you talk about like guys like Barney Hall and how some of them were able to kind of help arrange certain sponsors with teams, or, maybe did some PR work as well. I know this came up in the Derek Cope book as well. that there was somebody in the media that Derek was talking to about getting the Purelator sponsorship landed with a team that was looking for backing at the same time. One thing I thought was interesting with Mark Garrow is he talked about being involved with Chuck Bound's team over at, or the team that Chuck drove for and won the 1990 Busch Series championship with, the Hensley Racing effort. And I hope to hear the rest of that story. I don't know if I'll see him in Phoenix there, but I'd love to get the rest of that there about just what role he had. There was something else there about working with J-Ski and promoting them too. Yeah, just huge. I mean, my goodness, the stories that he's had over his career, have had a direct effect on the sport there, and not just being a voice where, next year those radio broadcasts are just going to sound so different. I'm thinking back to the first video on this channel is Mark Garrow being part of the PRN booth and doing the play-by-play for Sears Point back in 2006. Yeah, that'll be another one to definitely talk about there too. Let's see. Alrighty. But yeah, no, I think that's another big story that we'll be seeing here coming up in the last part of the season. Alrighty. Let's see here. I'm going to have some water here in just a moment. Let me mute this for just a sec, and then we'll get into, got a couple more commentary things to talk about here, and we'll do some trivia at the same time. I don't really have anything for show and tell. I guess the shirt is pretty much all I had prepared for that, but we'll see about some other stuff coming up here. So hang on, folks. I'll be right back in just a moment. Actually, I'll stay on here. I'm just going to, there we go. Got the water bottle right here. Hang on. Alrighty. We do have a new sticker on the water bottle this week. Big thanks to, again, Josh's Eggs for his sticker here that was added a couple of weeks ago. But I do have another one on this side here that I've not shown. Have any of you guys watched the Big Bear Discovery Center and the Eagle's Nest in California there? They got Jackie and Shadow, the eaglets that have grown up there. We got the sticker added onto the side there. That's the one right below the wheelie yellow one there on the same side there. But yeah, that one's now been added to the decoration here as well. So still adding decorations here. I didn't anticipate this, but yeah, I had to make sure I got the back of the computer here as well with everything else added on there. So always I collect too many stickers here, but I try to use them as best as possible and feature them on there. But that's another addition. So big thanks on that. Last Bro and my father went out there checking out that and picked up a sticker there. So definitely wanted to add that onto the water bottle for the show this week. So this was another story that kind of got buried with everything all the craziness that happened last week. But I did want to talk about a couple of statements here about the 36 race playoffs here. And I think this was on September 9th, if I remember correctly, was the Bianchi story there, where there was this video and, oh gosh, I think I'm just gonna have to just post it. Where is it? Where's the Jordan Bianchi thing on the the changes to the championship battle? Let's see. Boo. Okay. Yeah, this is probably one of those where it'd be good to address it at the same time here. Okay, no, I guess we got to go pretty far back here. Hang on here. Yeah, those are pretty old. Not that. But yes, the consistent discussions here about the 36 race championship battle, it seems like that has continued to pick up here in these last couple of weeks. And what's revealing, and I think that I've always kind of speculate about this on the show here, is, how is the other side justifying the current point system versus a 36 race championship? Or what's the way to, or what's their defense for it? What's their argument against a full season championship? Like, where are they coming from on this? And it seems like it's just more about like, oh, this is what's happening now, and we're not going to go to the past, and we're not going to go back. It's like, it's just, this is the way it is. And that's kind of the focus. It's so iffy, and it's already kind of a, where is it? It's already kind of a, okay, here it is. Yes. So let's see. That's right. This post. Okay. So let me bring out the second screen here. Okay, hang on. Got to move the screens around. Then we will get to the video to talk about it. All right. Okay. Where are we? Okay. Second screen. Here it is. This old chestnut. We got to get to this video here. Okay, yeah, it was the 9th. Okay. Let's bring this out. So, there's talk already about, okay, let's have maybe a new and exciting championship format that's going to be even more new and even more exciting than what we've already had. Like, oh, okay, our playoff system is already excellent, but here's one that would be even better. And, of course, this video gets posted on the Dirty Mo page, and I had to kind of chew it over, and I gotta listen to it again because it's been a little while since I've listened to it here. But let's jump right in. Oh, nope. And of course, the audio is not working. Where is the audio, folks? Are you on? Are you on? I don't think this is on. Is that going to work? Oh, I don't want it to do that. No, I want it to do this. Is that going to work? Okay, here we go.
Hypothetically.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Hypothetically speaking, if there was a championship round consisting of, say, 4 races, would that make it more palatable for the drivers?
Well, what's fair for the drivers and competitors is never going to be what's best for the fans.
And the drivers want more of a longer runway for points. The fans, I think, or some fans, I should say, because be careful, like they want shorter. At least the TV networks do too. But 4 races, again, hypothetically, would you be okay with that? Would you think that'd be okay? Kind of a fair compromise?
I don't even think it needs to be 4.
Okay.
We have 3 race formats.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be?
Well, you could have like a format, I'm just spitballing here, of, let's say, 3-3-4.
Sounds like Jordan knows something that I don't.
Well, Jordan knows everything.
I'm just coming up with ideas.
tea.
But you could have a format of like 3 races and then another round of 3 races. And then from that, you whittle down to whatever number that driver count is. And that number of drivers over 4 races is racing for the championship. Is that a fair compromise where you still have the mentality of you got to go out there and win it, you got to be aggressive because it helps you, but you also have a little bit more of a runway where, quote unquote, the better team is going to be more, the deserving.
I mean, you're essentially taking what the NBA does. It's a series.
Yeah.
Each round is a series, and the more wins or better finishes you get in the series, then bam, you are the champion. It's all stuff that's been done before. It's just how do we apply it to our format.
Yeah, I think anybody that's hoping for a 36 race season
dumb.
is never going to happen. So
Yeah.
just like abandon all hope for that.
Okay, well, I'm not going to do that, but thanks for the suggestion. So, my goodness. And so I had to respond to this, and it got a decent amount of traction here, so I appreciate that, folks. But this is just stupid. Okay, I don't know why I left this on the table from last week's show, but it's still fresh because somebody else decided to weigh in on this. Oh, it's never going to be a 36 race point system. You guys are backtracking on this already. It's going to be a 1 race, then it's going to be 4 races, then it's going to be 10, and then it's going to be, and it's not a slippery slope. They're already heading this direction by doing this. They literally have nowhere else to go. They have nowhere else to go. We have constructed this on so many different of these gimmicks that you can't, there's no room for anything else. The gimmick now is going to be getting rid of gimmicks and bringing it back in there. And they're not going to call it that, of course. See, I've always been talking about this. Like, if we got back to a 36 race point system at some point, you know, they're just going to say, oh, well, they're going to call it Chase Classic or Playoffs Classic or something like that. It's not going to be branded the same way that it was before. Obviously, it's not going to be the Winston Cup Series. That's, you know, that ship has sailed. But it's not going to be treated, you know, at the same, it's not going to be treated like, oh, we're going back on something. They're going to just call it something else. But I think that's where we're heading. I don't get this. I don't get where it's like, you know, and you know, again, Jordan's poker face in this kind of tells me that maybe this is further along than just like some spiffballing here. I don't think this is just something that's like getting brought up, like maybe we do this. Is like, this sounds like this is what's going to happen. Okay. And while I guess anything is better than a one race championship where, yeah, if you have a bad pit stop or you're just not very good at Phoenix or you just don't have a car that's ready well enough for that race there, you're just screwed no matter if you've won 10 races or 15 or, you know, or whatever. You know, anything's better than that, I guess. But again, it's still that restart obsession where we have to have restart over restart, and we're going to just, you know, whittle it down. We're going to do what, 3, 3, and 4. It's insane. It's insane. And I don't get this pessimism where it's like, you know, we're never going to go back to 36 races. You are getting back there. You're getting back there one step at a time because you have nowhere else to go. And you know, and I actually found myself kind of encouraged after tweeting about this on that day. I kind of feel better about it. Because sometimes you just have to kind of wait by the river and just wait for it to come downstream. It's like, you know, they're down there and there's gonna be like, oh yeah, you know, it's like we're having fun here and it's never gonna change. It's never gonna change. And then suddenly the voice gets closer. It's like, yeah, we changed this, but it's never gonna go back to that. And then suddenly they're here and it's like, okay, yeah, no. Like, come on. It's this and you know, and this is just it, and I never hear a good reason for it, which kind of brings us to the other clip that we have to talk about this at the same time here too, and we'll jump into that at the same time. So let me bring back over the stream channel, and we'll get back to our other special guest from earlier in this week here, and we will find where that video is and respond to it as well. Let's see. Just a lack of imagination and a lack of awareness. See, that's the other thing that I think is kind of troubling about this. You know, it's like, you know, we're never going to get here. We're never going to get back to that. And I get that, you know, first of all, it's not even an accurate argument, because like if we went back to a 36 race championship, that's still not, you know, bringing in the points format that we had with the system that was in place back then. I still think if you had a full season championship with the point system that was changed in 2011 that we've been operating under since then, and just bolting other things onto, like, you know, stage points and so forth, and even if you kept stages in it, you know, that would be still something unique, and it's something you could work with there. You know, this kind of leads to the other video. Okay, here we go. Here's where this one is. And let's let Jeff Burton take the mic here.
Whatsoever. That you have a group of people that say, well, stage racing is just giving something for nothing. That makes no sense whatsoever. That point system says the better you do during the race, the more points you're going to earn. Stage racing sucks. The same people that say stage racing sucks say they want a 36 regular. So think about this. We want how you do through the whole year to matter. But that same person will say they don't want it to matter during the race. So it gives 2 commercial breaks so you don't miss anything, and it rewards the people for doing well during the freaking race.
I love this. I love this. Oh, this is so good. I mean, you know, with all due respect to Jeff Burton and his accomplishments as a driver, I'm glad he's not in charge of the point system, or at least hopefully isn't for this here. I mean, my goodness, to view that this, I mean, the suggestion that there's some kind of inherent contradiction in not wanting stage racing, but wanting a 36 race championship, that somehow that is inferior in that sense, even though that's literally what we had up to 2004. I think that's just bizarre. And it's, again, the arguments are just so shaky. Like when you try to like persuade people about this, and then they come at it from this angle, it's like, well, you're saying the stage racing is terrible, but why is that? Why is a 36 race championship like more legitimate or more preferable? It's why does it have to be either or? And again, I really don't have a particular problem as much with the stage points. I think it's the stage cautions. I mean, first of all, I can't help but laugh. It's like, oh, well, you get 2 commercial breaks. Yes, because every NASCAR race has only 2 commercial breaks, Jeff. Like, come on. Like, this is insane. Like, it'd be one thing if that were the case. If we only had 2 commercial breaks, probably wouldn't really mind having 2 stages where they just burn a useless, just a tremendous number of laps for no reason, and and all that. But that's of course not the reality we're living in here either. If you the reality can exist where we have a 36 race championship and still have stage points and just not throw the stage cautions. I think people got I think a certain segment, maybe not everybody, but a certain segment of the viewership was entirely too critical of those road course races at Watkins Glen and Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Grand Prix circuit, where we didn't have stage cautions and people could work out strategies. I found the battle at the end of the Indy road course race, where it came down to Michael McDowell and Daniel Suarez, and Suarez had a bad pit stop and McDowell didn't, and that was decisive in the race. I thought that was great. I thought that felt as close to a legitimate win on strategy there, and a strategy that was still very much up in the air as you could have. And then on top of that, if I remember correctly, I think that was the race also where Eric Almirola ran out of gas at the end, and you had a last-second battle for a last place that was decided with Justin Haley getting to the finish line there after spinning out at the beginning. So that race kind of had it all, at least in my mind there. I don't get why that's the other element here at the same time. So it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Let's play the rest.
Don't understand how you don't think that's a good thing. I don't get it.
You see people and it's like they're rooting for us to fail. I get on here and I get.
I love this. I just love this. I'm sure now Twitter, is already a mess. I mean, my God, we've seen entirely too much of that in this last week alone. But I think, not everybody that offers a complaint about something is rooting for the sport to fail. That's insane. It's like, and of course, he's putting himself in this position about, being critical, but, he's doing it for good, but other people are doing it, for nefarious reasons. I'm sure there's some people that are out there trolling and, always saying NASCAR's dying and, it died with Dale Earnhardt or something like that. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think the sport has tremendous potential, and it just has an unwillingness to make common sense decisions. It's in pursuit of a fan base that either doesn't exist or they're trying to craft it out of nothing. And they're ignoring what has worked in the past. And the times where they kind of brush against it accidentally, something from the past, and find out it does work, they seem kind of mystified as to why that's the case. When they do a radio style broadcast and you have like a play-by-play, it's like, oh, wow, this is really fun. This is really engaging. Why is this working? It's like, well, because back in the early 90s, you'd have, Benny Parsons and Ned Jarrett out there on a road course standing in different corners, and they would catch other things that the booth couldn't catch. That's why it's important. It doesn't work at every track. It doesn't work at every oval or anything, but it's showing a need to innovate. What we saw today, I think in these last couple of races, very, very subtly, if you notice, some of the camera work has really, really improved on the NBC and USA side, even stuff that we haven't seen out of NBC in the past. Remember that camera angle that we had at Darlington over turns 3 and 4, where it was hanging over the wall and you could see everybody get really, really close to the fence. And then today, the camera that was at turn 2, a fixed, again, just like Darlington, a fixed camera shot that showed how close everybody got to the wall, which was extremely important today with, again, the Brad Keselowski incident. Little things like that. And again, not a trick camera, not something that's just trying to blur everything, not a moving camera that just makes the cars look more blurry than what's happening, but something that can actually be used to see how the cars are getting around the track, who's battling who for position, where you actually discern what's happening. and doubly so now to really take advantage of it, where you have, HD cameras and 4K and all that, and you can really pick out a car from the field easier than you ever have before. We don't need to make things harder to see. It needs to be something that's more useful. That's been really good, and that's worked because it's worked in the past. Because, again, older broadcasts, and I do have to talk about the old ESPN this way. Look at the video that NASCAR Man History posted recently of, what was it, like 50 or 60 different camera angles, different positions on the car, different, whether it was an onboard camera, a roof camera, or the shocks, or the rear gear, or anything like that. Tremendously helpful. And that's not even talking about the cameras on the tracks themselves and those angles. That's the kind of stuff that works. And I think, that's where you do have to, bring up something that is working and be positive about it and bring it up. And if it does happen, again, I think that's important to do it in good faith. And I think that's different from just being I'm just looking for something to complain about. That's so dismissive. I don't, and it's ignoring the nuances of what people are bringing up. You don't even want to engage it in debate. You don't even want to, defend your own position. I mean, we had to talk about this last week. It's just being dismissive, and that does not breed a good culture in any environment. Certainly not in a sport, and certainly not with, where we know it could be done differently. It's never going to be exactly the way it was in the 90s. And I hate when they bring that up as a crutch, where it says, oh, you just want it to be, like it was back then. We hear this from Kenny Wallace all the time in his videos. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's not going to be the same. A lot of the people that were involved in it aren't even around anymore. And, the drivers are different. The cars are different. Sure. But there's things we can learn from it and apply to today. Maybe not everything. And the result of that's not going to be the same thing that it was back then. But maybe in a lot of ways it can be better. Look what we had today also. Another thing I liked about the broadcast today on this same the same thread, when they did a segment about the history of car numbers, when they talked about Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney, and they were dominating this race, and the history of other drivers that have run that number. Now, maybe if you followed the sport like really close, it seems like pretty mundane, but not everybody knows everything about that history. If you're going to talk about Bobby Allison and Neil Bonnet and Ryan Newman driving different eras in the number 12 car, or Bobby Allison winning the championship in the 22 car, things like that. That's good. See, there's really, and that's showing a willingness to do it. I will take that 10 times out of 10 over, the segments that Rick Allen would do, where it's like they're trying to pretend like they're interested in, they have these copy and paste segments about like the city that the racetrack is in. And they're like, oh yeah, there's lots of history here. There's baseball here. It's like, come on, if you're not going to say anything pointed or interesting, you may as well just not do the segment. But, stuff like today, that was good. So again, it's this is where we differ. And again, as I said in this tweet here, we're just not having the same conversation. We're just not. I don't know what fallacy this is exactly, if it's a straw man or whatever, but it's absurd.
Get from NASCAR sometimes about being too critical or something. I said, I love the sport. Like I'm calling you out because I think what I'm saying is right, and I think this makes it better, or I want it to be the best it can be. Like we need to all figure out a way to lift it up, not just tear it down.
Because it's easy for people.
See, again, yeah, and I agree with that. Again, I agree with about trying to lift it up and all that, but you don't want toxic positivity. You don't want to say something, you don't want to always just say something nice about the sport because like you feel like you have to. That's not going to be any good. We don't need to be disingenuous about what's happening out there. That's not going to do any good. It's ignoring what debate, what discussion of anything actually is. And that doesn't do anybody any good. We don't need platitudes. We don't need like, oh gosh, well, I mean, this wasn't very good, but you know what? It could be way worse. It's like, no. Like if it's not good, say that it's not good. And, look, and not everybody has the same level of experience to maybe offer the most productive solution, but somebody out there does. Again, you guys out there are, talking about this. I'm sure you maybe have a different area of expertise and maybe you would be able to offer more answers on this problem versus that problem. And that's good. I think that should be encouraged, not discouraged.
People to complain than to be positive.
And if you have a complaint and don't like something, you should say it, but you should explain why. There's nothing wrong with Mark Martin saying, I won't.
I think, look at him, he's got something going on right there.
Maybe we should call and check on him.
Yeah.
I can shoot him a text if you want. You have a
again, it's almost like just humoring, anybody that's disagreeing with it here. I mean, yeah, Mark Martin has several good points here, but again, even a man with his accomplishments and his pedigree is just getting laughed off here at this point. So it's I think it would be wonderful to again have an actual discussion about this and to bring somebody on there, or bring a couple people on there and actually have like a thing where, yeah, you got somebody that's really hardcore about the playoffs. You got somebody that's really hardcore about the 36 race championship, but everybody's just in their own little snow fort. And yeah, I get it. I'm sitting here right now, but hey, my email's out there. My phone number's out there. If somebody wanted to have an actual discussion about this, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. And we'll see, what viewpoint is going to work out there, because every time they do a poll on this, it's overwhelmingly for 36 race championship. And that's for them to figure out, and that's for them to defend. If this other format, or, if it's going to be 4 races for the championship, if that's going to be so good, yeah, then they have to convince people on that. They're in the position where they have to put it forward. And it's not enough for it to just be different. It's like, why does this have to be, why is that the proper solution? So, we'll see, but it's reaching a fever pitch here, because I think that they're seeing, channels like Mark Martin's come out, and being really, firm on, different aspects of it, not just the nature of a 36 race championship, but also, even the aesthetics of the sport and, the placement of the car numbers and so forth, and how much of that is really going to change or anything. Yeah, I don't know. But I always find from that side of the discussion that they are putting forward an argument. They're explaining exactly why. And I don't think it's all just, poo-pooing about it and saying like, oh, I just want this because this is what we had. I don't think it's that. I think that's again, it's just being too dismissive of it. And hopefully things are turning around, because it feels like they are a little bit. But it's going to be a long process here. But, again, kind of going back to my first one there in reaction to the Bianchi post there, I think maybe we are heading there, and they're just going to kind of talk themselves back this direction here. And then we'll just, we'll be waiting for them when they get back here, and then that's fine. So I try not to get too wrapped around the axle here, but it is disappointing when you see people that are, again, prominent figures in the sport with a big platform out there, and they just put out like, oh yeah, it's a minority, they're just trying to tear the sport down. That's their problem. We're the ones that want to bring it up. It's like, no. We're all trying to pull the same direction here, folks. It's just we're disagreeing about where ultimately we're going to be heading when all the polling is done here. So we'll see. Anyway, let me get off my soapbox on that. But I do want to talk about those, because those were pretty flagrant, and I had my mouth full on both of those from last week. So I think that's all I had from that. Let's see here. Alrighty. Let me get this. Okay, I had the super chat on here as well. Bowser Jr. XD, thank you for your super chat on this for $4.99. Big shout out to Mike Christopher Jr. Not only was he running well in the trucks, but he was running third in the modified race before he broke down. I did not know that. So thank you for mentioning that Bowser Jr. and running that 13 there. It was a gorgeous looking ride he had there in the modifieds, and that's certainly good to see. And again, yeah, I thought he did a solid job in the truck race. He did have that one kind of incident there in turns 3 and 4, but it was a stack up that he just kind of found himself in the middle of it there. But yeah, again, kudos to him and keeping the family legacy going. I think that's really interesting to see. So we had that there at the same time. But yeah. Why is the sport run by people who hate us, Laser Bro? I don't know. I'm not sure if I put it quite that pointedly, but I see where you're coming from there for sure. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I would get, I'm trying to empathize as best I can. You know, I'm sure it must be tiring to, you know, be in charge of, you know, a massive sport, and you get your, you know, your email box or your Twitter feed or something is just full of people just saying like, this is terrible, and this is terrible, and this isn't very good. But, you know, as I've always said on this show, you should always expect more from professionals. You know, they put themselves in that position, and they, you know, it's not all it's not all benefits. It's not all, you know, a big paycheck and a lot of responsibilities and a lot of like, prominent events you get to go to or anything like that. You got to take the other side of it with there. And I think part of that is, dealing with the, you know, public relations and defending your position and understanding, what's working out there. Because if they're not happy with your product, they're going to take it elsewhere. And in a world now where, we're living in a world now where everything is a competitor. Everything is, people going on Twitch and watching somebody play a video game is a competitor. Other sports are still competitors. Other YouTube series are competitors. If somebody's watching a race and they're not enjoying it, they have more options than they have ever had out there. And that's where we are. And they should take that seriously. I think anybody that's involved in trying to attract somebody's attention for any period of time should do so. I certainly feel that way in the content I produce, and it's got to be good. And if it's, I don't want a bunch of platitudes from people, on that. If something's not good, I want to hear that because I want it to be better, and I want it. You guys deserve that. You do, and that's a big part of it. Let's see. Oh, Beast of Metal. Oh, goodness, man. No, thank you for the super chat. You didn't have to share that, but thank you for $20 on this one. Goodness. Burton's not trustworthy. This is your words here. Burton's not trustworthy. He also lied about NBC's role in the playoffs this week. That plus Aaron Andrews having a Mike Joy-style meltdown over Fox NFL criticisms days earlier says a lot about the state of sports broadcasting. Well, there is, you do raise a good point. You do raise a good point here, Beast of Metal. There was that, I guess that wasn't in the same video clip, but that was the one about, where he was saying that, TV doesn't decide what the championship format is. It's like, okay, well, somebody has to be wrong here. Somebody has to be wrong. Is it the information that came out here about, TV deciding, it was TV that decided to have the Clash at the Coliseum. It was TV that decided to have the playoffs. Or is Jeff Burton right that it's not TV, that there are some discussions out there, TV's present for these debates, but they didn't make the ultimate call that NASCAR did. Both those things can't be true. And Beast of Metal, you're very right in bringing this up. And unfortunately, I think in some of these discussions, we do kind of have to ask ourselves more difficult questions out there. And those may not have the most pleasant of answers, but that's a clear contradiction. And you're very right to bring that up. And I did not bring that up here. And you're very right to bring that up at the same time. So I don't know. It's a difficult situation. I'm not as familiar as the Aaron Andrews one. Did that just happen today? Or I guess no, that I said that was days earlier. Okay, I have not seen that one, so I can't comment on that. But you are right about the Jeff Burton one. That's a bit troubling, and it's a narrow distinction. Because, from what I recall with the Jeff Burton one, that was like, you have people from TV that are present at these meetings and they're part of the decision making, but they don't have the final say that NASCAR does. But, again, it does seem like the pointed issue is how much say does TV have? What we had heard before, and I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it, I don't want to guess on it, but I know we'd heard it before, that it was TV that decided on the Clash of the Coliseum, that decided on the playoffs, stage racing, and all these other aspects here, and that it was that NASCAR basically just didn't have as much ability to say no, or just not the wherewithal to say no, or didn't have the alternative viewpoint or something. I don't know what the situation was, but it does raise the question of who in that room has the most pull. I think that is a worthy concern. And I think that was, that is something that is worth looking at more closely and worth questioning on that. I do think that Jeff Burton's side of it there, I wouldn't say necessarily is completely untrustworthy of it. Certainly, conflict of interest from him, working with NBC, maybe there's that. I understand that. But yeah, how much in the final say, like when it's done, is just say like, TV comes out and says, we're going to do this, like this is going to be on the schedule next year. Or is it saying like, we would like to have this on the schedule and they talk it over with NASCAR, like it would be interesting to understand that. Obviously none of us are in that same room when those discussions are made. But it's interesting to hear from people, talking about that, for sure. So yeah. Jaguar Gator 9 did a good breakdown of her thing on that. Okay, interesting. I've only watched a little bit of Jaguar's videos there. I don't follow the NFL nearly as close as he does. But yeah, I'll have to look that up at the same time. But yeah, it's interesting. Kenny Wallace has kind of rounded the corner a little bit in some of his discussions there. It's interesting to see there on some of that there. But we'll see. Oh, we already have the tech call on that, Charles Peterson. Okay, thank you for the heads up on that. Let me check this here too. Let's see. Hawker's list here too. Yep, there it is. Yep, 6 minutes ago. This on Bob Pockrass's Twitter page here. No issues in Cup Tech. Blaney is the winner, and no cars to R&D. None. That's interesting. I thought almost with Penske's dominance of this one, with Blaney, Logano, and Barry even to that extent. I know we didn't really see Cindric as much in the mix, but yeah, I kind of thought with those, that maybe they'd take one of them back or something, but that is not the case. So very interesting. So okay, well there we go. Well, congratulations to Blaney. Officially, the Barry's last place streak is over. So no disqualifications from this, and Daniel Suarez will be your feature in the NASCAR article later tonight. I'm going to move this screen back here so I can see it a little bit easier. Let me bring this back on this side, and we'll do some trivia questions here along the way. All right. Okay, no, that's a duplicate on that, so we'll keep that here. All righty. Okay, so we'll do some trivia questions here to wrap up here for this evening. So we'll bring out the late 90s deal here. Go ahead and let me know once again in the chat which category you'd like me to do some questions from. Once again, they are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Make sure I'm caught up on everybody here. I think I am on this. Craig Franklin, I see your question here as well. If Craven won any races in the number 50th anniversary car in 1998, unfortunately he did not. I thought he won. I think he won a pole. I think one of his poles at New Hampshire came in that car, but I don't believe he won in that car, which is unfortunate. Yeah, he didn't win until 2001, and that'll be featured later in 500 days. That story will be coming up there as well. Let's see. Kind of checking out the rest of this on here too. Wherever there's a camera not too far away is a sticker. Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Look at the old TCI logos there on Ted Musgrave's car back then. Yes, Laser Bro, I see your comment there as well on the Jeff Burton one there too. Yeah, where he had questions about the system, and then suddenly, I mean, people can change their minds. I try not to be too critical of that because things change and all that. But that one's a little harder to explain, I think, in this one. Because yeah, what exactly has changed, but we'll see. Let's see. But yeah, with I'm not going to be dissuaded from the possibility of there being a 36 race championship, because I mean it really does reach a point. It's like a Jenga game, you move the little blocks out and you put them on top and you get it all set up there. You can't just do that forever. Like that's like the gimmick system here. It's like, oh, what if we put this here? What if we put that there? What if it's bonus points if you have the fastest lap of the race, or what if it's stage points, or what if it's this many stages? What if it's 4 stages for the 600? Ooh, let's put that brick up here. Eventually the thing just falls over. And when it falls over, what are you going to be left with? Well, whoever has the most points win. You're going to be left with the simplest system. And that's really where we get. That's really where we are. I was about to offer another metaphor, but I don't know if it would be appropriate. But I'm going to bite my tongue on that. So yeah, I think I've already made my point on that. So let's see here. What other categories here? Yeah, Casey Mears is coming back later this year. That was exciting. He's going to be in Phoenix, so that's cool. We'll see how that's going to be. He's got a couple of races there. Same thing with under house arrest. I'm with you on that too. It would be great to see Landon Castle back. I think he's a great personality. I hate what happened with the sponsorship falling through. My God, there's so many stories about that in the sports history where, one sponsor or, a change like that, cost somebody a good ride or staying in the sport, or, we saw that in 500 Days with Wally Dallenbach and him trying to get the Pizza Hut sponsorship to keep Galaxy Motorsports going, and it's just not working out. It's a rough sport in that sense, for sure. Let's see. Yeah, tracks, wild card, teams. I think I see 2 for teams. Let's see. Oh no, that's under house arrest. Just you on that one there. Teams, tracks, wild card. I don't see something standing out here at the moment. I'll just pick. I'll pick tracks, Charles. I think I like your idea on that. We'll just do a couple tracks questions. Maybe that'll be appropriate for what we had today. Okay, here we go. This is a good question. What track's second turn did Waltrip call the most difficult in NASCAR? It doesn't say which Waltrip. I don't know if it's DW or Michael, but I'll leave that up in the air. But it says, what track's second turn did Waltrip call the most difficult in NASCAR? That is our first question. What track's second turn did Waltrip call, the most difficult in NASCAR? That is our question. All right. Kind of checking over my feed here in the meantime. Congrats to the Bills for beating the Dolphins there this week. They're 3-0. I picked up one of those hats from the Rivals thing, the white hat with the silver on it. I thought that was sick. I don't really pick up jerseys. That gets to be a real expensive kind of thing. I have a couple, but I don't really pick up those. The new ones are pretty cool. The new white ones with the silver. That looks pretty neat. Yeah. Bowser Jr., I got your tweet here as well, or your text, your DM here on the last place finisher for Formula One in Azerbaijan. Oscar Piastri crashed on lap 1 after crashing in the last qualifying round on Saturday. First last place finisher DNF in 2 years. Notably, his title rival failed to capitalize as Pickeroo screwed the pooch on Norris's last stop. This, again, Bowser Jr.'s message on that. So that's our latest one here for today. So thank you for that message there as well. Wow, the Colts are 3-0. There we go. Just nuts. Ooh, great picture here. Bob Pocker is tweeting on here. Had a great picture of This one, let me post this to kind of sum up the Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs incident. Where are we here? Is this here? There it is. Yeah, love this picture right here. You got Gibbs getting towed and then Denny Hamlin's car in the foreground. Very love visual storytelling. That's pretty hip to see there too. If you're just coming on here, I know we just got a few viewers on here today. I know kind of a challenging day on this one here. What track's second turn did Waltrip call the most difficult in NASCAR? Doesn't say like, Daryl or Michael. I'm assuming Daryl. I'm assuming Daryl on this. At least that's the way I read it. But, I mean, it could well be Michael. You never know. And maybe if you ask them both the same question, they probably come up with different tracks. Would be interesting to find out. What track's second turn did Waltrip call the most difficult in NASCAR? And the answer is Pocono. Pocono is the answer. I think Craig Franklin, you got it there. Pocono is correct. Racing World TV, you got it. Yeah, Darlington was a good guess under house arrest, but not quite. But, I think Racing World, you were the first one on that. But yes, Pocono. Ooh, Rockingham. That'd be a good guess. That'd be a good one. We saw a lot of incidents there from the Xfinity and truck races there back in April, so that would be another one to look at too. Ooh, here we go. Here's another one. Kind of going on the subject of history from earlier. Where did Neil Bonnet post his first ever NASCAR Winston Cup victory? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Try to guess it here. Where did Neil Bonnet score? There, you gotta get the light just right here. Where did Neil Bonnet post his first ever NASCAR Winston Cup victory? Where did he? That is the question. Alrighty. I appreciate the comments there this week as well with the events last week. I know towards the end of last week's show, I talked a bit more about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and I know that was a bit of a tone change there for the show, but I did want to speak out on that there. And I wasn't satisfied with it initially. I know didn't talk more about the social media response to it. I wanted to lean into that more, but I messaged that on social media this week, and I'm glad I did, because that was bothering me on that. I don't know why I didn't go into that more last Saturday. I will admit it's been more on my mind there with the services occurring today here. But I appreciate people responding on that there as well. I think I am encouraged that it seems like discussions are people are being more open about it, and that and yeah, and kind of like I mentioned there again on social media there again, I couldn't help but notice. I figured out why what I was saying last Saturday was so dissatisfying was because it was the same thing I was saying back in 2020, and I wanted to point that out. I felt better after posting it on Tuesday there. Ben Schneider, one of our writers there, gave a very good discussion of this as well on his show on the Grid Network last week. And if you haven't checked that out, I encourage you to check that out. Because I think we're all trying to figure out where we go from here on that. But yeah, I appreciate everybody on that. There's so many things on social media in general. I couldn't, where, you post something online there, and it's like throwing a grenade. It's like, I'm not trying to say anything that dramatic or anything, but, I put something up there. It still amazes me, what does get a big reaction from people and what doesn't. And I'm not, trying to get reactions there in that sense there. But, if something's not right, kind of like, again, I'm mentioning this now because, again, it feels like it came up again just talking about this playoff system and how, small of a thing it is in this world. But, we need to be talking about it. We shouldn't be disincentivizing people from talking about it. And I think that's another offshoot from all that. So at the risk of going too far down the road on that, I do feel like mentioning that there at the same time. But again, I was very encouraged by the discussion. I was like, oh, again, I'm sure everybody here has had that same experience, especially if you're on Twitter there. You post something and like you think, oh, well, this isn't a big deal, or I'm not saying anything that's really that. And then people just lose their minds on it. And then you have something else where it's like, oh, I think this is a really controversial thing or something. And like maybe people aren't ready to hear this right now. And then you put it out there and then people are just like, oh, okay. I mean, I probably should have taken psychology more in school or something, but it's always caught me off guard with that. So, I don't know, but, like I said last week, I don't expect everybody to agree with what I say on here on this show, and I'm sure people don't. And, but yeah, I see something like that on last week. And again, something as simple as, discussing this point system here and just saying like, oh, it's never going to happen. It's like, oh yeah, you don't want to say never. You don't want to say never on that. So that's kind of that whole deal. Going back to the question here, long journey to get back to this. Where did Neil Bonnet post his first ever NASCAR Winston Cup victory? Where did Neil Bonnet post his first ever NASCAR Winston Cup victory? And the answer, we got guesses for Wilkesboro, Daytona, oh my goodness, yeah. Where did Neil Bonnet post his first ever NASCAR Winston Cup victory? The answer is Richmond. Probably not the first one you'd think of, but yeah, I mean, he won his last. Well, was it last race? I guess we went Rockingham afterwards. Yes, never mind. I was about to say it was won his last race there, but not quite. But Richmond is the correct answer. How about that? Anybody guess that? Oh, yeah, Bean Boy 89. You guessed it. The Richmond Fairgrounds. Bonus points on that. There you go. Richmond is the correct answer. Yeah. Josh Berry might win another race, Jude Fernandez. It's very possible. I kind of expected, when you got Vegas coming up, this kind of races, I'm glad you brought that up because this race is kind of another interesting thing. One thing I will concede that is interesting with the playoffs. If you ever notice, obviously these teams, they don't know how far they're going to get into the championship. They don't know how far they're going to get from one week to the next. They could be eliminated in the first round or something. But when a driver is particularly good at one place, or if they have a good setup or something, you'll notice sometimes that, today was a perfect example of it. Josh Berry had a good finish at New Hampshire before. They probably anticipated a completely different outcome to the first round, that maybe they make it to the next round, and then they know they're going to have this car on hand that's going to be really good at New Hampshire. I know that Michael McDowell kind of dismissed this a bit with the current car, that there isn't really a big difference from one to the next, but they still have some differences. I mean, there's some differences. Maybe they're just not big differences like they were with the old car or something. But, I mentioned that because, we see this in Phoenix too. Maybe somebody anticipates they make the championship 4. They don't. They get eliminated in an earlier round. Something else happens just completely out of their hands. And then they come to the Phoenix race and suddenly they're really, really good. We saw Ross Chastain win the championship race when he wasn't in the championship 4. And certainly he anticipated being that, that good later in the year. And I think that's kind of interesting. I don't think it's worth having the point system to have that, because you could certainly have that in a case where in a full season championship, maybe they count on gaining a lot of points on the rest of the field by having a good run 4 races later in the year. But maybe the 3 races before they get like DNFs in each race and they're hopelessly out of the championship and it doesn't matter. But maybe they go on and they win the race anyway, kind of like Joe Nemechek winning from 38th in points in 1999. I keep coming back to that quite a bit. But the Wood brothers in particular, mentioning this, looking up the stats there in the closing laps, the fact that the Wood brothers never won at New Hampshire and still haven't, but their best finish was second, and now it's happened 3 times. 1995 with Morgan Shepherd, 2003 with Ricky Rudd, and now 2025 with Josh Berry. That's the closest they've ever come to winning at the track there. And those are the only top 5. Excuse me. The only top 5s they've had there as well. Excuse me. Need more water. But I wouldn't rule Barry out for Vegas coming up because again, he's got something figured out of that track there for sure. But it'll be an interesting story when I finish writing the article here. Certainly Barry's comeback will be a big one there too. Yep, needed the water. Okay. Maybe we'll just do one more here. And then we'll probably wrap up here for you guys now that we have the inspection call already. Oh, okay, here we go. I like this one. Okay, this is a good one to wrap up with. What track was the site of David Pearson's career win number 100? I'll look it up, try to guess it. We're looking for, again, another name of a track here. What track was the site of David Pearson's career win number 100? That is the question. What is the answer? All right. Yep, October coming up here. Yeah, I'm trying to stay ahead of it here. I'm going to be ordering the door magnet very soon for Phoenix. So if you want to get your name pre-printed on there, and you're not in the Patreon already, at patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock, members of all levels get on there, all paid levels, that is. So we have that, and then we'll be ordering that pretty soon, getting ready for later in the month, and going championship racing. So we will see what happens. And, of course, another piece of the puzzle in the NASCAR championship. Seemed like maybe Steve Malazzi was going to make a move at the Truck Series 1. Did not happen. Connor Mosack ends up being a first-time last-place finisher. So the lead still stays, I believe, with Norm right now. Yeah, some close battles across the board here. We still got to wait and see who's going to be really pulling ahead. What track was the site of David Pearson's career win number 100? Now, of course, he had more than 100 wins in his career, but where was win number 100? That is the question. We got good guesses here. Darlington and Charlotte and Michigan and Texas World and Rockingham. Ooh, under house arrest was there. Okay, well, hang on. Well, you may be the ringer here, so we'll find out. Check one more thing here. I think that's all the notes I had. Yeah, this is a new one on that. Yeah, very excited about the Greg Sachs video. And again, we got some other stuff here coming up here for you. Oh, boy. What track was the site of David Pearson's career win number 100? This would have been in the 70s, and the Wood Brothers ran a partial schedule. There you go. Well, hey, good Wood Brothers tie-in here. All righty. Here we go, folks. Let's do it. What track was the site of David Pearson's career win number 100? The answer was Rockingham. It's like under house arrest. Yep, you are right on it. Rockingham is the correct answer. Let's see. And I think you were the first one to guess Rockingham also. Good on you. There you go. Here, let's pull that one up. Let's see. David Pearson. Jonathan Hassler. Got to say it one more time because it got said so many times today. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is. 78 at Rockingham. 1978 Carolina 500. Under house arrest. You get a bonus point on that one too. Fantastic. And you were there. That's awesome. That's great. Do you remember it? Like how old were you back then? Or is it were you just there as a kid or let's see. David Pearson over Bobby Allison. 219 laps led by David Pearson in the Mercury. Woody Fisher, your last place finisher, driving Henley Gray's Chevrolet, crashed on the opening lap. There you go. Kind of on both ends of that one. Very interesting. You didn't even Google the guys in chat. There you go. Under house arrest. You're too good. You're too good. You're drinking beer. 22. Oh, right on. Okay, so you're one of our veterans here in the chat here. One of our older viewers. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your story there on that. You definitely saw some history there with Pearson's 100th win. That Mercury was gorgeous. I can't imagine what it would look like in person. I envy you for having been able to see that. I saw the models of that car over at the Darlington Museum. We did the Southern 500 a few years ago, and just gorgeous cars. Just gorgeous cars. So kudos. There you go. Well, awesome. Well, there you go. Well, we'll go ahead and leave on that note here, folks. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the show here this evening. That will about do it. The website, in the meantime, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock for some bonus content, advanced access to videos here that are getting produced on this channel. My Twitter feed, @LastCarOnBrock, if you want to follow that at the same time. And our next show, of course, the website is lastcar.info. Article on Daniel Suarez coming here later tonight. Our next show will be next Sunday. We will be talking about the action in Kansas. It is Sunday, right? We got Xfinity and Cup next week. I got to get my entry list article here. We'll get that posted for you on Friday and track the action from there. Yes, indeed, the Truck Series comes back for the Roval. That's correct. Okay, so Saturday and Sunday. So, yes, after Sunday's race, we'll be back here on the show about 15-20 minutes after the checkered flag for another episode of Behind the Wall, and we will be talking more about the action. So in the meantime, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great week, and I'll see you all next time.